Hutton. House must come to order. Leader of the Opposition.
On the 22nd of July, the Prime Minister was asked, did you authorise anyone in Downing Street or in the Ministry of Defence to release David Kelly's name? He replied, emphatically not. I did not authorise the leaking of the name of David Kelly. Does he stand by that statement today?
I suggest, first of all, that the right honourable gentleman looks at the totality of what I said, but I stand exactly by what I said then. However, the Hutton inquiry will look at all these issues and it will make its report, and I suggest to him and to the Conservative Party that rather than trying to prejudge the report, they actually wait for it.
Well, we're not going to take any lectures from the Prime Minister on prejudging the inquiry. The statement that he made and that I've just put to him was made after he set up that inquiry. He was also asked at that time, why did you authorise the naming of David Kelly? He replied, that is completely untrue. Does the Prime Minister also stand by that statement?
I have said to him already, and I repeat, that he should look at the totality of what I said. However, all these issues are to be determined by the inquiry, and I suggest that he waits to make his points when the inquiry report is actually published. But what is very obvious from his questions today is that the Conservative Party have already made up their minds, and frankly, we know what they will say, whatever the report says.
Well, the Prime Minister didn't answer that question, and the whole country will see that he didn't answer that question. So let me give him another opportunity to answer that question. He was asked at that time, why did you authorise the naming of David Kelly? And he replied, that is completely untrue. Does the Prime Minister stand by that statement today?
I've made it clear already, as I said to him in answer to the first question, that I stand by the totality of what I said at that time. I stand by the totality of what I said at that time, but in relation to these issues and all the other issues, the Hutton report is going to report shortly. I suggest he waits for that. And as I say, what is very obvious from things that have been said by him and his colleagues in the past few days is that it really does not matter what the inquiry concludes. He has already made up his mind. However, I suggest that the rest of the House waits for the actual report.
But the Permanent Secretary at the Ministry of Defence has said that the decision to authorise the disclosure of Dr. Kelly's name was taken at a meeting chaired by the Prime Minister. Isn't it clear that either the Permanent Secretary or the Prime Minister is not telling the truth?
As I believe we will show when the inquiry report is actually published. But rather than have a debate about the evidence now, which rather strikes me as absurd given we're just about to have the report published, rather than him cross-examine me now, he can cross-examine me on the day of the report according to what the report says, not according to what the right honourable gentleman says.
I can assure the Prime Minister that I'm looking forward to that. But the Prime Minister has said that ministers in a government he leads should resign if they lie to Parliament. Does that apply to the Prime Minister himself?
Mr. Speaker, of course it applies to me as it applies to all ministers. But since we are about to have a report that will indeed decide whether people have not lied to Parliament, isn't it sensible to wait for the report rather than having this absurd preliminary now? And as for his relish in examining me on the report, that I can tell him is equal by mine in rebutting some of the rubbish he has been saying in the past few weeks.